All right, we're going to be starting chapter 8. So with chapter 8, it's going to be talking about polynomials and finding missing angles pretty much. This is from chapter 8. So we're going to be doing chapter 8 for probably a few weeks. And the title of this is the sum of angles in a polygon. And I go through the notes in the beginning. I say, okay, if we have a triangle, this angle plus this angle plus this angle equals 180 degrees, right? All three angles added together, no matter what they are individually, equal 180. You know, in a square, most of you guys probably know that this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, all add together to give you 360 degrees. Some of you guys might know, like let's say a polygon, this angle, this angle, this angle, this angle, and this angle, all add together to give you 540 degrees. Well, how about let's take a hexagon, a six-sided figure. Or let's say a 20-sided figure. I don't know, it's 20 sides. How could you figure out what all of the 20 angles add together to give you? Because the sum of all 5 of these angles is 540 degrees. The sum of, if you have 6 angles in a hexagon, add all of these together and the sum is going to equal 720 degrees. Well, what if I were to ask you how many angles all of the 20 angles add together to give you? The sum of all 20 angles. Luckily, there's a formula to figure this out. And let's see if we can figure out a pattern. If from here to here, the difference is 180. From here to here, the difference is 180. The difference from here to here is 180. That should make sense because look, I'm adding one more side from a 4-sided to a 5-sided figure. And how many degrees is a full side or a line? A straight line is 180 degrees. So here's 5 sides right here. If I have 6 sides, I'm adding one straight line to get to 6 sides. I'm including one more line, which is 180 degrees. That's conceptually what happens. When you add together another side, you're technically adding 180. And I give you a formula on your notes. I say, okay, the formula for the sum of all the interior angles is 180 times n minus 2, where your n is your number of sides. Okay, well, let's see if this makes sense. This is the formula that you're going to use, 180 times n minus 2. Let's plug it into here. To figure out all 3 angles, you know it's 180 degrees, but if you didn't know that, you would plug in n as the amount of sides this has. This has 1, 2, 3 sides. 3 minus 2 is 1 times 180 is 180. Yeah, this checks out for that. Let's try this. In a square, how can I figure out all 4 angles add together to give me 360? Well, 180 times 4, because there's 4 sides, 4 minus 2. So 180 times 2 is 360. That works. Let's see if it works for 540 degrees. There's 5 sides in a 5-sided figure, so plug a 5 in. 5 minus 2 is 3. 180 times 3 is 540, and so on. That's how it works. How would I figure out all of the 20 angles add together to give me what? I would plug a 20 in here. So the math that I would do would be 180 times 20 minus 2, which should be 180 times 18. So on a calculator, on a super simple calculator, if you were to go 180 times 18, you're going to get 3,240 degrees. That means all 20 angles, no matter how big or how small they are, always add together to give you 3,240 degrees. Okay. Let's try this. Let's say that this angle and this angle are the same, and this is 70 degrees. And let's say this is 50 degrees. How could you figure out this angle, this angle, this angle, and these two? See if you can try that. Pause the video and see if you can try to figure out these angles. Okay, well look. This is 70 degrees. This has to be 110 because this is going to give me a straight line of 180. Oh, I have to also say how big this angle is. Let's say this is 60 degrees right here. If this is 60 degrees, this angle would have to be 120 degrees. If this is 50, this would have to be 130. So in this shape, my kids are arguing about Fortnite in the background, if you can hear that. All right, so this is 110, this is 120, this is 130. Now, how can I find out what these two angles are? Well, how many sides does this have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 sides. 180 times 5 minus 2, plug a 5 into here, so 180 times 3 is equal to 540 degrees. All 5 of these angles add together to give me 540. Now look, since both of these angles are exactly the same, I would go 540 minus 110 minus 120 minus 130, and I would get 180 degrees. Since both of these are the same, I'm going to divide that by 2 to figure out that each one of these is 90 degrees. Those are some simple questions that you're going to have over assignments, the assignments today. Now we're going to get to the little more in-depth part of this lesson. And in the notes, I talk about a word called a regular shape or a regular polygon. Whenever you see the word regular, what that means is every angle is congruent and every side that is congruent. Whenever you have a shape where every angle and every side is congruent, it's called a regular polygon. And there's 2 really familiar ones. A regular quadrilateral is called a square, where every side is exactly the same and every angle is 90 degrees. It's exactly the same. This is conceptually called a regular quadrilateral, or broken down as a square. Another regular shape is an equilateral triangle because every angle is the same, all the angles are congruent, and every side is exactly the same. That's what makes it equilateral triangle. So this is technically called a regular triangle or an equilateral triangle. Now, let's take this triangle right here. And if I were to tell you all 3 of the angles are the same, it's an equilateral triangle. You should know that every one of these angles is 60 degrees. But mathematically, what did you do to figure that out? That every one of those angles was 60 degrees. Well, you probably did this. All 3 of these angles add together to give me 180 degrees. And if I have all 3 angles are the same, it's going to give me each angle is 60 degrees. Let's take another one. Let's take a 5-sided figure, a pentagon, a regular pentagon. This isn't the same, but let's just say every side was the same. It's not. And let's just say every angle was the same. And if I were to ask you, what is each individual angle equal? Not all the angles added together. Each individual angle, well, first thing you would do is this. You would figure out how many degrees all of these angles add together to give me, which would be 180 times 5 minus 2 from the previous formula. So 180 times 3, which is 540 degrees. But if you have all 5 angles that are exactly the same, technically you are dividing this by the amount of sides you have. So if I were to go on a calculator, 540 divided by 5, I'm going to get every one of these angles is equal to 108 degrees. Now let me show you what I just did mathematically. How did I find this? I took the formula 180 times n minus 2. And what I do, I divided it by the amount of sides. What is the side in the formula? It's the n. So I took this answer and I divided it by the amount of sides. Now look in your notes. You take the sum of all the angles divided by however many sides it has. This is called the formula for each individual angle of a regular polygon. You take the amount of angles that it has, the sum of all the angles, divide by the amount of sides. Now I give you a couple example questions. These example questions are going to be a little in depth. Let's do this. Let's start off with, let's take a square. Every angle in a square is 90 degrees, right? If I were to tell you, and this is, a square is a regular polygon. So if I were to tell you what kind of regular polygon has each individual angle equal to 90 degrees, this is what you would do, is you know that all 4 of these angles are the same. They all equal 90 degrees. Mathematically, if you didn't know there was 4 sides, you would do, okay, if every angle, get rid of this, if every angle equals 90 degrees and it's a regular shape, I would do 180 times n minus 2 divided by n. This tells me each individual angle. I already know it's 90, and then I would just work backwards to solve for my n. Multiply both sides by n to get rid of the denominator, and then go from there. We're going to do an example question in a second about that. So I'm going to go over 2 example questions. In the notes, I tell you, first thing, if the sum of all the angles in a shape, so if you were to do 180 times n minus 2, the sum of all the angles added together equal 2880. How many sides does it have? So you have to solve for however many sides it has. The sum, and this is from the example question in the notes, the sum for all the angles added together of any of this particular shape is 2,880 degrees. How many sides does it have? Well, this is the formula that they use. This is the answer. So you have to work backwards to solve for your n. So the very first step mathematically, just you divide both sides by 180. And technically these zeros cancel out, so it's 288 divided by 18. Or just going your calculator, 2880 divided by 180. Anyways, you get n minus 2 equals 16. Is that your answer? Absolutely not. Because you have to finish this out. Add 2 to get n equals 18. 16 plus 2 is 18 sides. An 18-sided figure has a sum of 2880 degrees. All the angles in an 18-sided figure, all the angles inside, add together to give me 2880. And if you're unsure on that, plug it back in. Does 180 times 18 minus 2, does 180 times 18 minus 2 is 16. Does 180 times 16 equal 2880? Yep, it does. So the answer to the first question is the side has 18 sides. That's what you're solving for the n. The second one is more difficult. Okay, the second one, it says if each angle in a regular polygon, okay, regular. Remember, regular polygon means every angle is the same and every side is the same. So if you were to use the formula 180 times n minus 2 divided by n, that tells you how many degrees each individual angle is. Now it's telling you each individual angle is 150 degrees. How many sides does this regular polygon have? It's just like this a couple of minutes ago when I told you we were going to work backwards on a question like this. So here it is. First step you would do is just mathematics. Multiply both sides by n to get rid of the n. You have 180 times n minus 2 equals 150n. Now for this, what you have to do is you have to distribute the 180 into both of these to get 180n minus 180 times 2 is 360 equals 150n. All right, subtract 180n from both sides, and you get negative 360 equals negative 150 minus 180 is negative 30n. So 360 divided by 30 is going to give me, this side had 12, this figure had 12 sides. In a 12-sided regular polygon, every angle equals 150 degrees. And the way you figure that out, see if you're right, plug a 12 back in here. 180 times 12 minus 10, or 12 minus 2 is 10. If you were just to go back over your work, if you plug a 12 into here, well, you get 150 as an answer. So 180 times 12 minus 10, or 12 minus 2 is 10. Divide that by 12, and when you get 150 as an answer. And you